welcome to Wednesday Night Connect. I am trusting that you are staying connected in Bible study and prayer and worship and staying connected to others in fellowship and worshiping together. Today I'm going to begin to talk about one of the many habits that can hurt us. And I'm going to be going through just about 10 of these habits over the next weeks. Dante talked about them. They're been discussed by many people over the ages. Some people call them the 7 deadly sins. And we're going to talk about these habits that just destroy us and eat us from the inside. The first one I want to talk about is envy. What is envy? Envy is a feeling of longing for what somebody else has, whether it's their possessions, whether it's a longing and a desire to have somebody else's success, so much so that you don't want them to have it, you want to have it. Envy is a feeling of discontentment and resentfulness for the things that somebody else has and you want to have it. That is envy. Have you ever felt disconnected and just wanting what somebody else has? Somebody else gets to go on a big trip. Somebody else gets to go to, Hawaii, and you think to yourself, why can't I go to Hawaii? Somebody else gets married and you didn't get married and you wanted to get married, and you say, why can't I get married? And then you feel resentful and upset, and you can't rejoice for somebody else that's doing something fun, somebody else that's getting something good, somebody else who has qualities or things about them that seem so much better than what you have, and you begin to wish they didn't have it and that you had it. And that, my friend, is envy. Proverbs 24:1 says, "Be not envious of evil men, and do not desire to be with them." The Bible tells us that envy is something that we need to put away from us. It's also in the 10th commandment. We're not supposed to covet our neighbor's stuff. We're not supposed to covet our neighbor's marriage. We're not supposed to be envying and lusting after things that other people have in a bad way, because it eats us up on the inside. We might say, I want that spouse. I want that car. I want that house. I want something that somebody else has. That is envy. I want the kids that somebody else has. I want the success that somebody else has. I deserve it more than they deserve it. They don't need it as much as I need it. I want it. That is envy. And envy is endless. There's never a satisfaction that fulfills the envious feelings that rise up in the hearts of men and women. Envy creates a sorrow inside of you when you look into the well-being of somebody else. It creates a hurt and a pain and a discontentment when you see somebody else doing well. When you lack someone else's possessions, when you lack someone else's achievements, and you desire to have it and you don't want them to have it, you are dealing with envy. And this comes to everyone's hearts at some time or another. It's a part of our human Adamic nature. Envy is the opposite of charity. You see, charity rejoices in my neighbor doing well. Envy is pained by my neighbor doing well. Envy says, there is something that I can't have that I must have, and I want to, and I feel that it's going to make me do better. It's going to make me better if I can just get this thing, the tree in the Garden of Eden at the very beginning. If only I could have that thing. I'm not supposed to have it. I was told I don't need it, but I want it anyway. We are dealing with envy. Envy is the result of comparison. You compare what you have with what somebody else have, and this results in a lack of contentment. It creates discontentment because of the envy that results from the comparison. You're comparing yourself to somebody else's life and somebody else's possessions, somebody else's skin, somebody else's hair, somebody else's car. It goes on and on and on, and the envy begins to eat you from the inside out, and you begin to have anger and discontentment that results from the comparison and the envy that lives in your heart. Envy was the motivating factor behind Cain killing Abel. Cain was dissatisfied and discontented with the sacrifice that he had offered to God, and Abel had offered a better sacrifice, and Cain was envious. Instead of changing his life, he tried to snuff out somebody else's life. And envy will cause you to hurt other people. Envy will cause you to try to bring down other people so that you yourself can feel just a little bit higher. And this is exactly what Cain did, but it doesn't work. It brings you lower. Proverbs 14 says, envy makes the bones rot. Envy will cause you to rot from the inside out as you watch and are angry about other people's possessions and success and achievements. When you think about it, it is envy that caused Jesus to be crucified. The religious leaders were envious of the fact that Jesus had the miracles, and he had the love of the people, and he had the power, and he had healings. And the religious leaders didn't like that. They were losing influence and they were losing control, and they were envious of Jesus Christ, and so they had to try to bring him down instead of lifting themselves up in repentance. And this is what can happen when you are envious of other people. You will try to bring them down. In 1 Corinthians 13, we read about how love is patient, love is kind, and it's often read at weddings, and how love is long-suffering. But one thing that love is also is love is not envious. True love wants good for the other person. True love wants everybody else around to do well, but envy wants other people to do badly so I can feel better, and it doesn't work. It looks like fun, the things that you see and the things that you are envious over, the things that you covet, but those things will kill you because they were not meant for you. The things that you are supposed to have, they will do well with you. But the things that you want so badly that you don't need, the things that will hurt you, are the things that you are envying after. You have to recognize envy when it comes and creeps into your heart, and you have to run from it, like Joseph ran from Potiphar's wife who would have tried to destroy him. You have to run from envy. And we're going to talk about how you can deal with envy when it inevitably comes to your heart. Envy is a human flaw, and it will come into your life. We see it in the Bible. There was women all throughout the Bible that had envy for other women who were having a baby, and they weren't having a baby, and they got upset, and it began to eat them up because they wanted to have what somebody else had. There are men in your Bible that envy other men's success, and they try to bring down them because of what they have. They envy what other people have. David is an example of this, who envied what Uriah had, Bathsheba, and because he took what Uriah had, he took Bathsheba, he had to bring down Uriah and kill Uriah. This is the result of trying to envy and take what somebody else has that doesn't belong to you. Envy cannot coexist with peace. Envy cannot coexist with contentment. They will always be at odds with each other, and there's no room in your heart for contentment and envy to exist together. 1 Peter 2 says that love banishes envy, that love replaces envy, and it pushes envy out of the hearts of men and women, and it will push envy out of your heart. Envy could be one of the most strong causes of unhappiness in your life. As envy begins to grow, it begins to haunt you, and it begins to turn into a deep resentment for others, and you can't celebrate with others, and you can't compliment others, and you can't encourage others, because the envy begins to spread like a carcinogenic cancer in your life, and everything is viewed through a bad filter of envy. You can't love your neighbor like you're supposed to when envy has taken over your soul. We're supposed to love our neighbor. We're supposed to wish and want and hope and reach for the best for other people around us. But envy doesn't do that. Envy doesn't want anybody to succeed, because envy says if they succeed, that means that you're unsuccessful. If only I were richer. If only you were more good looking. If only you were more famous. If only you had a nicer car and a nicer house. Envy says everything you have is not good enough. Your situation is not good enough. And envy causes misery. We need to understand that God knows what I need, and God is providing for me the things that will be good for me, and I don't need to reach after things that other people have and wish they didn't have it. Things that you envy are not going to be the best things for you. And God knows that. And that's why God said in the 10th commandment, don't covet other people's stuff. We can't even covet a kind of life and envy a kind of life that somebody else has. And social media is really good for that. Social media will cause you to look at other people's lives that are often curated and airbrushed and filtered, and look at those fake lives that we see on Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, wherever, and we look at these lives and say, I wish I had that life. We can look at the Hollywood movies that are fake sets and fake CGI backgrounds and say, I wish I had that. I wish I had that life, and it's all fake, and we begin to envy something that is not even real. And it causes misery and the horror and the haunted resentment in our lives, really, that ends up in a resentment towards God and a resentment towards us around us, because they are not giving us what the things that we are envious for. It kills your soul. It kills your joy. It is a comparative mindset that is always comparing what you have to somebody else's life and comparing your situation to somebody else's situation. Don't you know, if you've got running water, you've got a mattress, you've got food in your fridge, you're doing better than of the vast majority of the entire world. We've got so much to be grateful for, and yet the Hollywood industry and the advertising industry is constantly telling you that you're not good enough and you're not pretty enough, and you're not handsome enough, and you're not rich enough, and your car's not good enough, and telling us to blow our money on things that we don't need to impress people that don't even notice or care. Envy is going to destroy us. Yeah, that's all fine, but I want what somebody else's has. And it creates a misery, and it begins to create a self-pity. Everybody else is doing better than I am, and here I am just struggling, and I don't have what other people have. And you go deeper and deeper into your misery and feeling so sorry for yourself because you have been dealt a bad hand and other people got it better than you, and you begin to go lower and lower into this miserable condition of comparing yourself to others, comparing your husband to others, comparing your wife to others, comparing your kids to other people's kids, and down you go into a never-ending rabbit hole of dissatisfaction with other people, and dissatisfaction with your life, and dissatisfaction with yourself. And so we imagine that we would be happier with a nicer car, more exotic holidays, a better house, better friends. And we begin to regret the past. We begin to doubt the future, and we don't appreciate the present. We begin missing out on a life that's actually worth living. We begin to miss out on the here and now, the blessings of the present, because we're so messed up with the future and our past. Nothing ever went right. Nothing's ever going to go right. And we don't savor the people around us and savor the present moments that we're living in that we ought to be grateful for. Envy steals the here and now from us. So when you compare to others, you'll only find pain. Envy is so much a part of our society. We call it desire or ambition, and the marketing industry tells us that envy is a good thing, but it's not. It will only bring pain. In Latin, the word envy means blindness. It causes us to be blind to the things in our lives that we ought to be grateful for. You become blind to what you have been given in this moment because all you can think about is the things that aren't good enough. When you envy what other people have in their lives, you will begin to destroy them and not even realize it, hoping that it'll bring you up a little bit higher. How do I know if I have envy? Well, you have envy if you can't celebrate other people's wins. Someone else gets married, someone else runs into money, and it eats you up inside and causes you to shrivel up. That's envy. So how do I fight it? I fight the envy that tries to creep into my heart by celebrating other people. I solve that comparative attitude, that discontented anger, by being grateful for what God has actually given me. What if you were able to say, what God has given me is enough and I don't need what other people have. It's not for me. In Philippians 4, Paul says, I've lived with a little and I've lived with a lot, but I've learned to be content in whatever state that I find myself in. God made you unique. There's no one else that can be you. You know, we got to celebrate that instead of wanting to be someone else. If you are a musician and you are envious of other musicians, you will drive them all away and you'll be all alone when they could actually work with you and help you. When you're an envious person, you end up driving everybody away. No one wants to be around you because of your discontented, angry, bitter, envious attitude. Nothing is satisfying for you because envy is a black hole of dissatisfaction, and people are not drawn to that. People are drawn to people that are joyful and grateful. And you end up all alone and you think everybody else has got a problem. But really the problem is within you. It's your lack of contentment with yourself that has caused you to be discontented with everything around you. When you get overwhelmed with God's Spirit in worship and you begin to become grateful to God, you can begin to push envy out. But when you say, I deserve what somebody else has and they don't deserve it, you invite envy in. When you say it's not good enough, when you say it's not fair, when you say I don't deserve this, and why did I have to go bankrupt? Why did I have to get sick? And how come they're not sick? Envy creeps in. The reason you might be envious of somebody else is because it's a sign that they are loved and they are accepted, and deep down you feel that you are not loved and that you are not accepted. And so envy lurks in our hearts, and it destroys our relationship with God. It destroys our relationships with people around us. When is the last time you said a word of encouragement to someone? When is the last time you celebrated somebody else's win? When is the last time you gave someone a compliment for something that they accomplished? Those are all ways that you can banish envy from your heart. Envy questions God's goodness and says, God is not giving me what I need. Envy questions the people around us and their goodness. They are not giving me what I need, instead of appreciating what we have. You got to remember that Jesus said he had a glory before he came down to earth. And he stepped down from that. He stooped from divinity to humanity and gave up something so that we could have something. That's a good lesson. That's what we need to do. We need to give up a few things so somebody else could have something. 1 John 3:16 says, hereby perceive we the love of God, that he laid down his life for us. And we ought to lay down our lives for the brethren. You see, when you lay down your life, when you sacrifice for other people, that's where joy is. Not by taking from their life so you can improve yours. Paul says that Jesus gave it all up so that you and I could be spiritually rich. When we give up a few things and help someone else out, we begin to learn contentment and joy. But every time you envy and you say, I don't have enough, and they have what I need and want, we lose contentment. We lose joy. We lose peace. Life is too short to go around expecting to take what someone else has. We ought to be satisfied with the God who is more than enough. Well, God bless you. Have a great night. We'll see you on the Friday prayer call, and we will also see you on Sunday as we go through the book of Revelation. God is enough. Have a great night.